This episode is for Friday, May 29th, 2015. Welcome, Meteor fans. I'm your host, Josh Owens, along with my special guest, regular co-host.
Hey there.
Dean. Welcome, Dean. So, Rye was busy and totally slipped his mind, so Dean filled in. I think you're like the official backup now.
Hey, not a bad place to be.
Yeah. All right, so this week we are going to talk about MDG blogging again.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Stateful URLs. It's an interesting concept. Meteor and Backbone. That was a heck of an article. No Meteor. What would you use? And Meteor SQL.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So there was a lot this week. I actually had trouble choosing like just 5.
Yeah.
I had the list at 10 and had to whittle it down. MDG blogging. You know what? I'm going to be lame and say I just realized I didn't read the entire article. So number one, I love that Sashko blogs, right? And
yeah.
The amazing part here is the fact that, they just hired a new VP of marketing, and, we're starting to see some changes happen in the company, and this is one of them, right? I love that this blog post was written and put on their own blog rather than put up on Medium or something like that. So that was pretty exciting to see. And I think, the gist of this post, they called it optimistic UI updating. But I think this is really just an explanation of latency compensation and kind of how it works and how you can use it and that kind of thing. So I think it's worth a read. And it's pretty long here. He's got 4 points.
Yeah, it's a justification too of what's become the norm, but it kind of takes a step back and says, why is, rendering on the client so important?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the other thing is too, it's maybe the norm in Meteor land, but it's not the norm everywhere else necessarily. And so
right.
The idea is that, when you read this article, just think like, when you submit data on your client, basically you're able to fake out all that data going to the server, running, and then coming back. And so it looks super fast to you because it's going to run on your client, go to the server, run there, and then the data, like any data changes, will come back down. And you won't even see once that change comes back down. And so you're getting it way faster than everybody else. And I think that's nice, and there's been times where I've used it and it's been very, very helpful. And probably the easiest way to do this is just to put your Meteor methods in the in the collection, and your collections usually go to both the client and the server. So that's an easy way to do it. But yeah, so we're really just talking about latency compensation and stubbing and that kind of stuff. So, but it's definitely worth a read, and I hope they put out like an article a week would be awesome.
Right. Because there's still a lot of there's still a lot of convincing of people to do, right? So having more content. This is a rather technical one of it. I actually saw a 10-slide thing that I wish I had gotten into. Maybe we can get it into the show notes. I saw a very non-technical 10-frame slideshow of Meteor that I thought was really good.
Oh, nice.
And so, but this is like kind of like the opposite direction of like a really deep dive, and somebody who understands Angular and React will be able to get a lot out of this article and understand the selling points.
Yeah, definitely.
So more blogging from MDG. We'd love it. Thank you.
For sure. From, honestly, like Sashko and Slava do an amazing job about being more vocal about their work. I'd love to see more from like Avital or David Greenspan or David Glasser. They're doing a lot of cool stuff over there.
Yeah,
they don't really talk about it a lot. So they've got this like GitHub tool for managing issues that they built in Meteor, and it like syncs issue data back and forth. And it shows them like an issue that hasn't been touched in a while. Like it'll start flagging it and moving up the queue and telling them to respond to it. And it's pretty awesome, man. I'd love to see a post on that or something, like, I don't know. They're doing cool with it.
Yep. Keep it up, guys.
All right. Next story.
Yeah, this stateful URLs, man. So if I rewind a few years ago, even before the rise of Backbone, I was introduced to the Knockout.js view model framework. And it was actually what turned me on to reactivity. I wouldn't have discovered Meteor if not for Knockout. And the idea with that was with all view model things is that there is an object whose state uniquely determines the view of the page. So if you're doing a to-do list, there's the mode where you're editing a to-do and the mode where you're not editing a to-do. And if you just have an ad hoc, soup of events, you might not be able to, for example, in a Selenium or Cucumber test, go to a particular state of the page immediately. You'll have to click around. Your instructions will be like, click here and do all that stuff. Well, all that's really doing is changing the state of some object that controls the view. So what if you put the state of the object that controls the view right in the URL? And that's what I got out of this post. And it's something that I thought was a good idea. Even years ago, I could maybe help me think of some drawbacks of this because I think it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. And I think maybe coming from Rails land, this is similar to doing like nested URLs or something, right? And I don't know. I think it can definitely be helpful. I guess to me, this doesn't seem like a super new concept. It's really just bringing, an older concept to Meteor, which, I mean, it's got the whole push state support through Iron Router or through Flow Router, but it's not necessarily something that's native in Meteor. So
right, it's a back to the future concept. Like, hey, this is what you can do with URLs. You can create an address for anything. Editing the third record on your page. Why not have a direct URL to that state of your application?
Yeah,
possible with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important because the URL is like the backbone of the web, right? Like if you don't have a URL, there's no way for me to tell you, hey, go here and do this thing, this specific thing, and so that's why like URLs are important, and that's why we have things like Iron Router and Flow Router, because even within a single page app, URLs are still in.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Meteor and Backbone. So this one like hit me out of left field. Everyone's over here like, talking about, oh, hey, React, or hey, they just hired Yuri and he's working on Angular, and, we're going to see something with React soon. And then boom, MixMax comes out of nowhere and they've got this great blog post about integrating with Backbone and the work that they just finished up. Yeah. And rather than trying to figure out a way to get Backbone to slot into, kind of like Blaze, they decided instead to write a little DDP client and have a Backbone Meteor collection object that they can now use. And they're getting fully reactive data updating going on in Backbone using DDP. And that, this is a great read. Definitely worth taking a few minutes to look over. And even if you're not like a Backbone person, I think the important thing to take away here is that DDP is awesome. And seeing it expand, to me, like I want to see it expand more and more and have more like server side DDP kind of points where you can expose data. But seeing new clients consuming it too, like it just makes you realize the modularity of building a Meteor app is actually pretty amazing, because, as long as you're supporting DDP on either end, you're good to go. You can hook something into Meteor.
Yeah, and this is just continuing the trend of showing that, you know, you don't have to take all of Meteor it's not a big ball of mud, right? And that protocol is the integration point that you can have different things on each side. And I wonder, Josh, like, do you think that with so much of the stuff being contingent on DDP, if DDP implementations occurred in a whole bunch of other server-side frameworks, would Meteor still have the compelling advantage?
I think it has a better one, right? So now, you know, if you decide, you know, I don't know, I guess there's different, like if you think about Meteor in these chunks you can break apart, right? So you've got like the database is one of those chunks, and changing that out is very interesting to people. But in reality, the Meteor server is just grabbing the data and pushing it out over DDP. And so I see DDP as another one of those like points where you can kind of disconnect something and replace it. And the interesting thing is it's, you know, the DDP is kind of sitting in front of the client and the server. So it makes it a very interesting disconnection point where you can change those pieces out. And I do think, you know, having talked to Airnoda about the stuff that he's doing, you know, and I tried to prompt him to talk about this more on the AMA that he did this week. But, you know, honestly, he's doing some interesting stuff too, right? Like they've written a Go DDP library or server, and they're trying to figure out a way to use like Kafka and Go to like serve up data to the Meteor clients. And that's very compelling, right? So he was having some trouble scaling with the write load that he has, right? So Mongo's great for a ton of reads, but when you get a ton of writes, like it can handle it, but the way Meteor is set up to read from Mongo, it doesn't handle it very well. But so I think it's very interesting that he was able to kind of modularly break off and move this piece over here. And I don't know, I guess that's we're starting to approach the idea of microservices through DDP.
Yeah, I think that's starting to get going, and understanding the hosting ramifications, like Galaxy is aiming to do, and like Modulus has been doing. Learning how to scale a DDP protocol will help everybody.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so definitely go read that. Lessons in client-side DDP.
It's another like Back to the Future. Like, you hadn't heard of Backbone in a little while, or URLs. Like, you know, next thing we'll be talking about Meteor and XSL. Stay tuned for a blog post from me about that. Yeah,
have fun with that. That sounds terrible. I was trying to I was building a new app, and it has to use an undocumented API for YouTube, and the only thing that it gives back is XML. And so like I'm trying to figure out how to like parse and edit and re-spit out XML and
XML to JS.
That's what I'm using. But
wrap async around that, and you know, it's a funny looking JSON object, but it's still JSON.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it feels dirty. Like
sure is.
Digging through that, I tweeted like hell is other people's data structures. Yeah.
Wow, I could get fewer characters by saying like hell is XML.
That's true. That's very true. All right, next story.
Yeah, so the next story is actually just about what would you use? So kind of with if you couldn't use Meteor, geez, a lot of people have answers about that. My answer is I don't know. I don't really have a good answer at the moment. It would be my go-to. I mean, Node.js, but I'd, be implementing fibers in it, and I'd be implementing all the things that I'd miss. So
yeah. I tend to maybe, like for me, I probably would have just kept going with Rails, and I probably would have pushed harder on learning Angular. I got far enough in to implementing like one kind of Angular controller to do some stuff on a page for like sorting and stuff, and I just didn't like it. And honestly, about 3 weeks later, I ran across Meteor, and it was like, man, this makes a hell of a lot more sense for me. Like, I could have built this entire, application that I've been working on for months. I feel like I could have built it in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And the estimation is probably off by 50%, but still, months versus a month and a half is still pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
and Facebook React has a few interesting connections. For one, it's not so different philosophically from Meteor with the reactivity. And there's also some of the other devs that I know that are in the Clojure script world.
mm-hmm.
They're big on this library called Owens, which runs on top of React. So like as an additional front end tool to learn, and it would be, for me, it'd be React. And then I'd also dig into their server-side rendering and React Native. They kind of seem to be doing a lot of the things that the Meteor community is doing. So I think you could learn by comparing what's going on in React with what's going on in Meteor.
Well, and so the interesting thing, maybe you're right. Like I would, if I had known Angular, React probably would have been super interesting to me. And it's generating a lot of noise. But I think the key difference is, and I don't know if this is true, but the team at Facebook has an actual app that they can, kind of get learnings from and try things out with. And, MDG is great, but at the same time, they actually take a week every quarter. No, it's not every quarter, every half year. They take a week off from doing regular work and they do app week and they build things using Meteor. But maybe the thing I'm trying to get at here is the fact that they're only playing with the framework itself every 6 months. And
they're not continually dog fooding on a critical app.
Yeah, that's totally what I'm getting at. So, I mean, React, I think maybe they conquered some critical pieces that I feel like Meteor's maybe ignored, like server-side rendering. And, we got Cordova, so I think that's a good thing. And I think React Native is probably far too big in scope. So using Cordova makes a lot more sense to me, especially when you look at their core tenet of like supporting off-the-shelf components that are open source type of thing.
Mm-hmm,
so, but yeah, I definitely think React would be on my list. I can't get over, JSX, like JavaScript and HTML living together. I don't know. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon, but keep your.
I'll throw my cane. I'll shake my cane at them with you, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, like we've learned over the years that it's best practices to separate this crap. So let's just stop right now.
Functions are just so nice. Raw JavaScript or ES6 functions. Like let's not add too much cruft to that simple premise.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd love to see like React with handlebars or something.
No, that would be interesting. I know the JSX part is optional, but I think all the main tutorials I've seen say, let's just take that as a starting point. So
yeah. Yep.
Well, what's interesting in Meteor SQL for you?
Yeah. So this one, like, I don't know. This is another one. Like, I had no idea. I mean, obviously, Compose is probably paying attention to Meteor, but I had no idea they were paying this much attention to Meteor. And so this just kind of like popped up on my radar. I saw a tweet about it actually, and was so kind of excited that they were paying attention to and doing research on it that I put it up on Crater. And but they really, they dug into the roadmap, and SQL support is definitely the most voted feature. And I'm hoping, like, I'm not hearing anything from MDG, but I'm hoping someone's working on this. But they kind of outlined some of the options that are out there now with a la SQL, Meteor PostgreSQL, and all those kinds of things. And I don't know, I found it to be a good read, and it's an interesting roundup. I don't know how accurate it is because I haven't used any of these projects that they were talking about, but I think if nothing else, it's worth people trying some of these things out, and don't wait for an official package.
Right.
Because I think it's going to be slower than most people think to get an official package out. And I don't know. Honestly, I would love to
Yeah, like you said,
hire Ben,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when there's a lot of churn, MDG kind of waits to see something kind of settle in, and so it does take a little while. And you'll look into the community for really good packages that can do something now. And because you can build on node functionality and like things like live streaming notifications from Postgres. The NPM Postgres library has been dealing with that. It's pretty battle hardened, so I don't think it would be a long road to get that kind of thing into Meteor. But you'll probably be using a third-party library for a while before you're waiting for MDG to adopt it. And that's one of the principles of the Meteor ecosystem, right? Is that you can find what you need in the community. I don't know if some of the tools like having a component library, having Atmosphere. It's good to have.
Yeah. And you know what is probably the most interesting, and I just now started reading all this, but Ben Green, Numtel, actually went in and responded on Crater, because I don't think Compose has comments on their blog. Is that true or false? That's true. They don't have comments.
Okay.
So he left a comment on Crater, and actually it's quite large, and he kind of gives a comparison of Ala SQL and Space Elephant's efforts and their Postgres work to what he's been doing, and he points out that they're actually missing quite a bit in what they're doing, and that they don't have a ton of test coverage and all kinds of stuff. And so he mentions his packages as well. Yeah, I don't know. Like if I had to, or I was interested, I would probably be looking at Ben's stuff. And
yeah,
it's only going to get better if people pitch in, if people try it, learn, see what it does, what it doesn't do. And, honestly, it takes you a couple hours on a weekend to maybe add a feature if you know what you're doing, or if you don't know what you're doing, just keep playing, and maybe you get half an implementation. You post up in an issue and someone's able to take it the rest of the way. Who knows? But like Space Talk, I spent a couple hours on Sunday working on Space Talk and submitted a pull request to get direct channels working, and it turns out like I was probably 75% of the way there, and someone else picked it up, and they've been refactoring it over the last couple of days, and it's been getting more and more polished. So this is how things get better.
Cool. What are the hosting options for playing with Meteor and Postgres? Heroku, maybe?
All of them, I guess. I mean, really, so if you look at MUP, I think it's going to give you a Mongo database, which you can turn off, and then you can install your own Postgres by hand on that same box or on a different box. So that's one option. Or, like probably the easiest option would be to go to Heroku and get that set up. And, I'm kind of curious now that Compose is talking about it. I know that they've got a Postgres option as well. So you could set up there and hand off the connection string, just like you do if you use Compose for Mongo.
Okay.
So I think there's a couple options, definitely. And I mean, nothing says, you could set up your Postgres database on Heroku and then host your app somewhere else if you wanted. I mean, it's all just EC2 in the end.
Yeah, that's true. I was curious what were the kind of easiest onboard kind of options.
Yeah, I guess, I'd probably look pretty hard at Compose if that's something I were going to do.
Yeah. And is the idea with SQL on the client to be isomorphic, that you would use SQL strings to query your client-side data as well and create?
I mean, I think that would be cleaner, yeah. I mean, it'd be weird to use a Mongo syntax on the front end and a SQL syntax for publishing on the back end.
True. But yeah, maybe I'll do a weekend warrior project of converting the Mongo query syntax into a SQL string. I like objects.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at honestly, screw it. Let's just throw caution in the wind and build an app, man. With Meteor PG.
Meteor PG, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to see what he's got on the client here. He's got subscription calls that you can make. Yeah, I don't know. This probably isn't interesting for people, but
just one of those, like, as I investigate SQL, I'll need a good hosting option, and then I'll figure out what's a natural feeling way for me to query it.
Yeah.
Isomorphic is probably the most natural for the average person, though.
Yeah, I would agree, because it's what they're used to, right? Like, it's what we've been set up to expect. So
yeah.
So, and here's a pro tip for you while we're on the subject of databases. If you set up a database in Compose, don't use things like @ or colons or slashes in your passwords or your usernames.
Those things that are special URL characters.
Yes, those are the ones.
Yeah, I've been bit by that before.
Yes, I helped a guy yesterday, and he's like, I can't figure out why I'm on Modulist, I've got Compose set up, but they're not talking to each other. And, after about like 3 minutes of looking at everything, we're like, he had an @ in his password. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
That was a bummer. I guess it was a bummer for him. He felt like he wasted a lot of time, but it was good. We fixed it pretty fast.
Yeah.
So,
the perils of string concatenation.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Dean.
Good topics, Josh.
Yes.
Had fun.
I haven't done this in a while. Let's maybe talk about the patrons. I didn't do it last week.
Yeah.
We've been getting some new people on here, so I'll just mention some names. But if you're interested, you want to jump in the Slack chat room where you can find Dean and Rye and myself and a bunch of other really awesome meteorites. You can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Meteor Club, and there's a $10 plan there that'll get you into the Slack chat room. But we had Matthew F. has joined, Ruben I. Let's see, Marcus L. Fred A. Ben G. Tons of people are joining.
Excellent.
It's awesome. I think we're up to like 80 people in that chat room now. It's getting crazy.
Getting crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting stuff. I wish I was in there a little bit more this week.
Yeah, it's almost it's a little noisy, but it's really fun to watch all the people learning, the experienced people will jump in and be like, oh, here's the thing. Like even today, like Stefan Wholehouse was in there asking like, how do I do this? And like we're all giving him suggestions. So,
yeah.
Pretty awesome.
From like Meteor specifics to general JavaScript stuff. A lot to learn in that room.
Yep. To Ben's poop jokes.
And Giphies.
And weird Giphies. I will say that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll be back next week. Maybe with Rye, maybe with Dean. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Ciao.
This video has been a Meteor Club production. You can find out more information about Meteor Club and join the mailing list by clicking on the Meteor Club button below. If you enjoyed this video, you can also hit the subscribe button below and get more content like this. Thanks for watching.